In the last few months, I've been only training the beach start, the rock start, the static start, and I completely forgot to pump long distances. I was so focused on getting a sharp start because I really wanted to be sharp at starting from anywhere that I completely forgot to practice long distance pumping. And I just realized that I got worse at that. And it's not because of the stamina, not because of the cardio, because still, I've been doing some cardio on the side, outside of the water. So it's not that. When you want to pump long distances, you don't necessarily need to have a huge cardio. That's not the most important part. The most important part is the precision. You have to be super precise with what you're doing with your entire body. So I have some tips that I can give you to improve your long distance pumping. So watch this video until the end, and I promise that 2 weeks from now you will double your time in the water. Unless you're doing fucking 4 hours, but I don't think you're watching this video at that point. So watch this video. I like numbers. No, that's not true. I hate numbers, but I would say that long distance pumping, I mean efficient pumping, is like 20% cardio, 5% arm swing, and the other 75% is just technique. It's just precision. But what do I mean by that? So the first thing, the most important thing probably is that you have to pick up speed. You have to reach the cruising speed as soon as possible. Because if you don't keep your foil at the cruising speed, at its cruising speed, you will be so much more inefficient. So gain that speed as soon as possible and work on maintaining that speed. But of course, if you really want to maintain that speed, you have to work on your precision. You have to be super precise with your body. And the only way to do that is by going out there and practicing. There is no other option. So if you think that by going for a run, instead of going into the water, you will pump longer, that's not how it works. Let me tell this to you. Go out there in the water whenever you can. Of course, if you cannot, if you're in the mountains, you don't have your foil with you, okay, of course, going for a run is better than doing nothing. But your main priority, your main activity should just be to pump as much as possible. As I said, this arm swing is just about, in my opinion, 5% of the movement. It just makes you 5% more efficient. So if you're just going for a little trip, a round trip, a 1 minute trip, it doesn't really matter. It's not really necessary. But if you're really trying to be as efficient as possible, then it's useful to implement this arm swing. And mind you, I'm not waving my arms like a bird. It's a super gentle movement. I like to keep my arms close to my body and to just swing them a little bit, just again to help me relieve the weight off the board and then press again down to generate speed and to give me the cadence. It allows me to stay consistent. Then I've always said that it's good to practice the pump and glide drill to become efficient with gliding, gaining height and generating speed. But I also think that on the other hand, if you really want to be as efficient as possible, we should try to stay high on the mast for as long as possible. And if you are pumping and gliding, we are not really always high on the mast, and we not always have the right cruising speed. So we are not at the maximum possible efficiency. However, I also think that if sometimes you just take 2 seconds, maybe even just every 30 seconds, you just take 2 seconds to glide, to reset a bit your mind, to reset your feet placement, to just relax for a split second, for a moment, that's gonna be beneficial. And together with speed, you need to stay as high as possible on the mast. Okay, don't breach, possibly, but it's important to be precise and to keep the foil always close to the surface. Because if you really are able to keep the speed and keep that height, you will be 50% more efficient. It's incredible. It's all about that at the end of the day. It's all about that. It's all about keeping the speed and the height consistently. And if you're able to do that, you will double your distance. Okay, Gael, but how the hell can we keep the foil super high, super close to the surface without breaching? Don't look at your foil. I used to do that. I used to constantly look at my foil to try to understand how much could I go higher. But that's not how you should do, because you completely lose the focus and the balance. You should try to feel it, because you cannot always watch your feet placement or your foil, because you're gonna crash sooner or later. You have to try to feel it. What do I mean by that? So you start, right? You generate speed and you pick up that height. At the beginning, it's easy to gain height, isn't it? It is, because you have a lot of energy, right? But the more you go on, the more you realize that you will start losing height on the mast. This is because your legs start burning, your legs become heavier, and because of that, you are not really sloppy, you're not really relaxed with your legs, and because of that, you don't allow the board to rise a lot. So you're just maybe you're generating speed because you're pressing it down, you're pitching it down, but you are not really generating height, because again, you are not really relaxed and you don't allow the board to rise underneath your feet. So the most important thing that you need to focus on is to be sloppy all the time. So try to relax, try to feel what's going on underneath your feet. If you really focus on the feeling, if you close your eyes and you really focus on what your foil is doing, you will understand what you need to do. It's I don't know. I know it's not the best piece of advice that I can give you, because it's kind of metaphorical. I don't know. It's not practical, but it is what it is. The more you practice, the more time you spend out there, and the more you will understand the feeling underneath your feet, and the more you will understand how to keep it high, how to keep it efficient. Really, close your eyes and try to understand what are you doing when the foil is more efficient? What are you doing when pumping is effortless? And then remember that feeling. Remember that movement that you did, and try to replicate it as much as possible for as long as possible. In terms of training, I mean, how I organize my session, if I really want to practice and improve long distance pumping, is kind of like what I do in the gym. You know, in the gym we want to grow muscles, right? We want to build muscles. And to do that, we are doing a set with a bunch of reps and a certain weight. And then we are resting for a specific amount of time, either a half rest, either a full rest, a full recovery. And then we are starting again with another set, with the same weight, with another weight, with the same reps. It doesn't really matter. Now, with foiling, we cannot really adjust the weight because it's always the same. But we can adjust the reps, so the length of the sets, and the recovery in between the sets. So what I really like to do is to pump, right? And not go until exhaustion. So if, for example, 10 is exhaustion, you should, in my opinion, stop at 7 or 8. Then you rest for 1 minute, 1 minute and a half. It depends on how good you are at recovering. And then you start again for another set. And again, you don't reach your limit. You don't reach the 10 out of 10. Why that? Because you don't really want to burn yourself out for the next set. Because we don't want to go as far as possible in the single launch, in the single set. We want to go as far as possible. We want to pump the biggest distance possible in the entire session. And the way we do that is by not burning ourselves out in every set, because otherwise your performance will decrease like crazy. But if you always stop at, let's say, 7 out of 10, maybe even 8 out of 10, okay, your performance will slightly decrease the following set, but not drastically. It's going to be just a little decrease. In terms of what I'm doing with the Sirus XL and the Sirus L stab, the 77 mast and the Kluber 80, I'm usually pumping for around 2 minutes, 2 minutes and a half, maybe 2.5 minutes the first set, and then I'm slightly decreasing, and I pump for around 10 sets with 1 minute, 1 minute and a half in between sets. And in my opinion, that's probably the best training that you can do. And mind you, I say that your performance will decrease set by set, but it's not necessarily true, because the more you practice, the more time you spend in the water, and yes, maybe you will get tired, but you will also get more efficient, because you will really understand the movements. You really understand how to keep the foil as high as possible in the water and to keep that speed. If you have a look at the recordings, you will notice that I give these quick, small pumps. Because again, I want to try to save energy. And I want to try to keep the foil as high as possible for as much time as possible. That's pretty much all I had to share with you. My camera is dying, my SD is almost full, the sun is setting, so I'd better just close this video. I really appreciate your time. You can subscribe to this channel if you really want more tips, and you can also download the free pump foil guide that I've created for you to have everything that you need to learn pump foiling and progress in one document. And if you're really struggling, if you really need help, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram and to send me your recordings, and I will analyze your movements and I will try to help you out as much as I can. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Ciao.